what do we need to do, Jeffrey, if we are a sales manager, sales leader, to not necessarily just encourage our team to create content and create content that is effective at getting attention and driving revenue, right? What do we need to do we need to financially incentivize them to do it rather than just a soft, we would like you to do this?
Well, the biggest thing that I would recommend is collaborate in order to do it. So the sales leader says to the sales guy, hey, you need a little more content. Let me help you. Let's go visit a couple of customers and find out why they bought. And then let's make some content around that so that you can become a more effective, a more efficient, a more profitable salesperson. Because if you go to 10 people and write about how they bought or why they bought, I guarantee you the 11th sale will be yours. That I guarantee you. So there can't be a finger pointing thing. There has to be a joint thing. And I feel like there's not enough leaders collaborating with their salespeople to figure it out. And keep in mind, and I think this is important, Will, that if the salesperson feels that he or she is better than the sales manager at selling, they'll never listen to one word the guy says, ever. So I think that it's incumbent upon the sales leader to be the best salesperson on the team. Then the salesperson would be willing to collaborate with them, would be ecstatic about collaborating with them.
Let me ask you this then, Jeffrey. Should sales leaders be creating perhaps leadership content? Is this a pyramid that goes to the very top?
They should be creating sales content and leadership content. He should be creating sales content that he sends out to his people and say, come on, you guys can do better than this.
Sure.
Let's see you make it happen. There's no inclusiveness.
So Jeffrey, then, let's get practical about this, because one thing to say it right, and it's another thing to, if we were coaching a sales leader, to get them to implement it in front of their team. Something that I've said, if I could go back in time, I would have done when I worked in medical devices. Well, obviously in hindsight, it's easier to say this. I would have created a podcast. I would have created, say like I had 27 urologists on my territory that I was doing deals with. I would have just interviewed 15 of them on a podcast on a rotation, and the rest of them would have tuned into it. It would have been an absolute no-brainer. And for an hour every week, I would have engaged with these individuals. I'm sure there've been comments and things going back and forth. I wouldn't even have to put it on iTunes. I could have just emailed it out to 27 people once a week. So when we're talking about creating content, Jeffrey...
Wait. What would the subject of the podcast be?
So I was selling endoscopic camera systems, imaging systems to urologists. So
right.
It could be anything. I mean, if we want to dive into this anecdote a bit more,
I would have titled my podcast, "What do you do if you run into a prick?"
I knew there was some Willy joke coming there, Jeffrey.
Yeah, exactly.
But
keep in mind though that humor is what attracts.
Sure.
You can't be British. You have to be Monty Python. And you have to do it you can't be proper. This is not the Queen of England. This is making a sale. And you have to put this in perspective of what is going to make that customer feel attractive enough to me to want to buy from me. Can I engage this person where they will want to connect with me? So
to dive into, just got started down this thread now, but with that urology, we call it the salesperson and the prick or something along those lines. All you have to do is stroke their ego, one person's ego, for half an hour once a week. And you've got this incredibly valuable piece of content that with Yorkshire, it would be incredibly useful for those as individuals within that space as well, right? So how is there a framework that we can roll out for, or what I'm asking you, Jeffrey, is what's the starting point? Should salespeople creating podcasts? Should they be doing YouTube live videos? Should they be blogging? How do we know where we should start with all of this if we're going to encourage our team to create content?
If it were me, I would start a podcast. And every week I would interview one of my customers.
Yeah.
And stroke them about how great they are, how they got started, what they did. And they're going to share it with everybody. And I can promise you that one urologist knows another one.
Of course.
And at the end, I would say, hey, if you're a urologist and you want to be on my show, here's my email. Now I'm going to get new people, new prospects, new customers for free. It just takes a little bit of time. Or I can go on LinkedIn and I can troll for people. I can look for urologists, look at my zip code, look at my thing, and introduce myself and go through a bunch of bullshit. Or I could simply pick one guy who's very well known, do a podcast with him or her, and I win. I win tremendously.
I think a lot of people are nervous about the lag time, right? Of we get people to start, and people assume it's going to be 7 years down the line before they get a lead from this.
I would recommend, we've been doing our podcast called Sell or Die for about 4 years now. We have 2.5 million downloads, so it's not like we don't know what we're doing. But you start to get business pretty much right away. But if you're only doing it to get business, you're doing the wrong thing. You'll have the wrong motive. What you're looking for is content that values other people and builds them up. And it's your reputation. You can actually make a cold call to a urologist and say, hey, you're a very well-known urologist. You may not have seen my podcast, but I specialize in urology. Would you like to be a guest? Not, do you want to hear my sales pitch about my product? Big difference.